Zenith Team is a superhero team that protects citizens from danger around the world. The group comprised two brothers, Zoom and Connor, and others. One day, a scientist named Dr. Grant comes up with an idea to improve the team's super strength using experimental gamma-13 radiation. The experiment works well for Zoom as it increases his speed, making him stronger and faster. But sadly, the experiment goes wrong for Connor, and he suffers a mental breakdown that causes him to eliminate his teammates. Realizing his brother was dangerous, Zoom eliminated him in a vortex, but he lost his powers. 30 years later, Dr. Grant calls the military general Larrabee with shocking news. He has realized that Connor is coming back to Earth in 12 days. Larrabee does not believe this since Connor had been assumed dead. However, Dr. Grant shows him proof that Connor had been trapped in a dimensional rift, but now he is returning to Earth. The doctor is worried about the destruction Connor will bring to Earth, and this makes Larrabee decide to bring back the Zenith project. Shortly after, he asks Dr. Grant to gather several outcast children who have superpowers. He also wants him to find Zoom, as he is the only one who can train the children. Elsewhere, Zoom owns an auto shop and has gotten used to living everyday life. He has some powers remaining, like super speed, which he uses to blend a smoothie with his pointed finger. He sees a woman wearing a green dress standing opposite the shop. Zoom tries to warn the woman about an oncoming car, but it is too late. The woman collapses in shock, so Zoom brings her into the auto shop so that she can feel better. Suddenly, a car pulls up into the shop, and out steps Dr. Grant and a few men. He tells Zoom that he is needed to help train the new Zenith, but Zoom refuses. Then we find out the woman in the green dress is a psychologist and a great fan of Zenith, and her name is Marcia. Zoom refuses again, causing Dr. Grant to shoot him with a tranquilizer, as they have to take Zoom whether he wants to or not. The Zenith team recruits are kids who do not fit in the normal society. These include a 6-year-old girl named Cindy, who uses her superhuman strength to throw a bully up a tree, and a girl named Summer, with telekinesis and empathy, which she shows by humiliating her school's cheerleaders' bullies. The third member is a rebel boy named Dylan, who can become invisible, and a 12-year-old boy named Tucker, who can enlarge and inflate any part of his body. Shortly after, Zoom wakes up in Area 52. Dr. Grant informs him that he has to undertake the mission, or he will be imprisoned for a long time. He also mentions that Zoom will be paid $500,000 for his services. Zoom quickly jumps at the opportunity, and the doctor shows him around. The two come across Marcia, who will be working alongside Zoom. Marcia is pleased to work with him and shares that she has every copy of the Zenith Team comic book in several languages. However, Zoom is not interested in anything Marcia has to say, and he makes fun of the scientists since they all live in their mother's basement. Soon, he's shown to the new team. Zoom is surprised to learn that he will be training kids, so Marcia explains that it is easier for the kids' bodies to handle Gamma-13. Also, children can be taught to be loyal. After that, Zoom, Marcia, and Dr. Grant have auditions to select the best kids. They end up with Summer, Tucker, Cindy, and Dylan. After the auditions, Zoom goes to meet the kids. Marcia is excited to introduce him, but he comes off as rude and mannerless. Zoom asks the kids if they know why they were chosen in the auditions, and Cindy says that they were selected because they are unique. However, Dylan says that they are not unique, but different. The four kids argue with Tucker and Summer, yelling at Dylan for speaking to Cindy like that. Marcia shuts them up, giving Zoom a chance to speak. Instead of praising the Zenith program, Zoom says it ruined his life, and he advises the kids to protect themselves from the harmful radiation they will be subjected to. Elsewhere, Larrabee sees how Zoom behaves, but Dr. Grant assures him everything will be fine. The team has 8 days to be prepared, or else Larrabee will inject them with a lot of Gamma-13 radiation so they can have a fighting chance against Connor. Marcia argues with Zoom about his actions, but he is not apologetic. Instead, he says he will not lie to the kids about what will happen to them. Later that day, Dr. Grant shows Zoom a costume he had built for him, but Zoom never got to wear it. The following morning, Marcia gives the kids several comic books, asking them to be careful with them, as they are original copies in mint condition. She then reveals that Zoom will be their trainer. The kids want to know whether they will have superhero names and costumes. They ignore Zoom's claims that superheroes do not exist. Summer and Dylan also come, but Dylan has an issue with Zoom being their trainer, as he cannot handle himself. Soon, the kids start practicing improving and control their abilities. Summer enjoys making Zoom feel frustrated, while Dylan constantly escapes the facility. On the other hand, Cindy wants her alter ego to be a princess, and she throws a 2.5-ton boulder at Zoom when he makes fun of her. Tucker refuses to show his ability since he has major self-confidence issues. Zoom starts mocking him for being lazy, and Tucker gets so angry that he inflates his stomach, pinning him to the wall. Zoom wants to know the threat he is preparing the children to fight against, but Larrabee keeps him in the dark. Zoom tries getting information from Marcia, but she doesn't know what is happening. She shares her joy at meeting Zoom, but Zoom explains that the superhero comics were all government propaganda and not real. Marcia is so disappointed that she walks away with tears in her eyes. Shortly after, Zoom crashes a meeting, asking about the incoming threat, but Larrabee kicks him out. Zoom spends some time playing with the kids. As he waits for the meeting to be over, he approaches Marcia and asks her what is happening. But Marcia shares how lonely she was growing up as a weird kid, and she found joy in reading Zoom's action comic books. While she initially did not believe Zoom, she is sure he is not and can never be a superhero. Instead, Zoom is a bitter man who accepts money from the military so he can express his hate to the children. Then Marcia enters her room and slams the door, while Zoom walks away unbothered. With less than 5 days to go until Connor's arrival, the children are taken to start combat training. Zoom then runs into a robot created as a friend for the original Zenith team. Zoom and the robot take the children to a restricted area with an alien spaceship taken from Area 52. The team boards the spaceship and flies all over the nearest town. They even purchase food at a fast food store. Marcia is making her rounds when she finds the security officers laughing over something on the TV. She hears a news broadcast about an alien spaceship where the aliens had ordered extra fries. As she listens to the description of the spaceship, she goes to the bunker where the spacecraft had been stored. Zoom and the team get back, happy with how their evening turned out. Marcia is very angry and asks Zoom whether he knows the problems that will arise from his reckless actions. As usual, Zoom does not care about anything and offers Marcia a chicken sandwich, not knowing she is a vegetarian. At night, Zoom is sleeping when Cindy wakes him up. She had a bad dream and wants to sleep with him as she is scared. Zoom tries to refuse, but Cindy whimpers, and Zoom allows her to sleep on the couch. She asks Zoom whether her parents sent her away because she is different, and these words cause Zoom to feel empathetic towards Cindy. He tells her that she is special, and this place will help her learn how to control her abilities. Then, Cindy pulls the couch near Zoom's bed and sleeps. Next day, Zoom and Marcia work personally with the children, helping them develop their skills and learn control, and the children are ready to start combat training. They are placed in a simulation vault, where they have to escape the numerous paintballs thrown at them. After the exercise, Zoom asks the children how the training went. However, Summer calls him out as a bad trainer, saying he only cares about himself. The children walk away and leave him standing there with his cakes. Zoom then goes to see Dylan, who has been kept in solitary confinement for always using his invisibility to escape. Zoom talks a little about himself and how he and his brother had been dragged from their homes to come to Area 52. He cannot continue the conversation, so he asks Dr. Grant, who has been listening in on the conversation, to let him out. At the same time, Larrabee looks at the timer and sees that only 2 days remain until Connor's arrival. The team then finds Dr. Grant in an indoor garden. Summer locks the door, and the kids start terrorizing him. First, they make it rain in the garden, and then hit him with lightning. They cover the garden with ice and blow a strong wind that disorients Dr. Grant. Eventually, they press a button that causes a raccoon to show up and spray a stinky liquid into Dr. Grant's face, making him pass out. Meanwhile, Zoom is in the radiation room with Dylan, explaining what happens when the body is injected with Gamma-13. He also wants Dylan to focus on his vision, so he can control his ability to see with the mind. Zoom then asks him to look for Summer. Dylan tries to find her in a room without leaving the radiation room. Zoom tells Dylan that the team will need a leader, so he must be strong. The conversation goes back to Connor, and Dylan is surprised to learn that most of the events stated in the notebook about Connor executing his teammates are true. Zoom gets defensive, saying that the military caused Connor to descend into madness. Dylan correctly guesses the relationship between Connor and Zoom as brothers, but it turns out that Marcia has been listening to the conversation. Later that evening, Zoom looks at a few pictures of his team. He remembers the kids and how hard they are working to live up to Zenith team's expectations. The following morning, the kids assemble in the classroom, but Zoom is nowhere to be seen. Marcia is disappointed, but motivates the kids to keep up the good work. Suddenly, Zoom walks in, accompanied by several scientists. They take the team's measurements, and then Zoom takes the children to do their various activities of the day. Elsewhere, Dr. Grant shows Larrabee a neutralizing net he has created for Connor. If he manages to trap Connor, it is possible to remove the harmful radiation from him and make him the superhero he once was. Meanwhile, the children have a fantastic time as they all get in their element and display their powers. Zoom finds himself bonding with the children, and Marcia enjoys seeing this change. Zoom confesses that he misses his old team and feels that if they had someone like Marcia looking after them, things would not have happened like they did with Connor. That night, Zoom arranges a party for the kids to celebrate finishing their learning period. Dylan dances with Summer while Zoom dances with Marcia. Suddenly, Larrabee enters the room and cancels the party. Zoom realizes that he has brought Gamma-13 radiation to inject the kids with. Zoom warns him that he is ruining the kids' lives, but the general does not care. He feels he can do whatever he wants, as no one can stop him. Later that night, Zoom wakes up the kids and asks them to be quiet, so the guards don't find them. He takes the kids to an electrical room with no cameras and shows them where his former team came up with their superhero names. Zoom gives the kids names, but they don't like them, so they come up with theirs. Summer is Wonder, Tucker is Mega Boy, Cindy is Princess, and Dylan is Houdini. The team decides to be a family, and Zoom says they have to escape before Larrabee uses them to fulfill his purpose. But Dylan gets a little lightheaded and sits down. His mind sees the control room and understands what the mission is for. He tells Zoom that Connor is alive and returning to Earth in less than an hour. Zoom did not think it was possible, so he quickly went to the control room. First, he encounters Marcia and yells at her for always condemning his actions while she wants to use the kids. Zoom then finds Dr. Grant and Larrabee and asks them what is going on, but Dr. Grant is too much of a coward to face Zoom, so he leaves. Larrabee confirms that Connor is returning to Earth and says he kept it a secret from Zoom since he didn't need to know. Zoom fears that the children will not have a chance against Connor, but Larrabee wants to dose them with 3 times the required Gamma-13 radiation, and he has Zoom arrested. Marcia and some guards go to get the children since it is time for the radiation. On the way, Marcia apologizes and then blows air at the soldiers, revealing she has powers. The team defeats the soldiers and then runs to save Zoom before being discovered. Zoom is worried about Marcia, but his mood changes once he learns that Marcia did not know about Connor and that she also has super breath powers. The group follows Zoom to the spaceship, hoping to use it to escape from Area 52. The alarm bells start ringing, and Larrabee learns of the escape. He orders his men to close the hangar doors, but Zoom's team escapes the place before Larrabee can get them. Once Zoom is sure the team is safe, he asks to be dropped near the neutralization net, as he wants to see his brother. This creates a disagreement with the rest of the team, as they too want to help Zoom. However, Zoom fears for their safety, so he leaves the robot to watch after them. Zoom gets to the field and waits a few seconds before Connor appears. Zoom introduces himself and Connor laughs, since his brother has gotten old. Connor is angry that he is alone and trapped in a vortex for a long time. He starts beating up Zoom, realizing that he has lost his powers. At the same time, Larrabee and Dr. Grant watch the exchange between Zoom and Connor. Larrabee orders for the neutralization net to be prepared and fired at Connor. Back on the spaceship, Summer manipulates the robot into letting them leave the ship, and the team arrives in time to defend Zoom. Connor sees the group and laughs again, since he believes the children are not a match for him. The neutralizing net is released, and Connor sees it. He diverts it, and it heads towards Cindy. Meanwhile, Cindy calls for help just as the net reaches her and crashes, but it turns out that Zoom's powers never ended, and he didn't have a reason to use them after the incident on his team. Zoom and his team assemble, while Connor mocks the military, attacking them with sonar waves. Larrabee is angry to know that they only had one neutralizing net, and as Connor continues to attack the soldiers, Zoom tells his team to give him a second, and he will be right back. Zoom runs all the way to the facility and grabs the suit that Dr. Grant had made him. He then comes back and tells his team that it is time. Zoom starts creating a vortex by running fast in circles, while Summer and Dylan distract Connor. After punching him several times, Cindy hits Connor with an electric pole, but Connor misses the vortex. Luckily, Marcia uses her super breath to push Connor into the vortex. Connor is annoyed and tries to use his powers, but the vortex is too strong. Dr. Grant sees what is happening and yells at Zoom to close the vortex, since he has found a way to cure Connor. Zoom closes the vortex, but the energy vacuum that results from this action sucks out all of Gamma-13 radiation in Connor and Zoom, leaving them with their natural powers, and the two brothers are happy to reunite. As the group leaves, Larrabee asks Zoom what he will do in the future, and Zoom says he will be doing what superheroes do, save people. He also invites Dr. Grant to join the team. 3 months later, the children have settled back into their everyday lives. They are no longer ashamed of their powers or who they are. Cindy participates in a school play, while Tucker helps his football team win by being the goalkeeper. Summer tries out for cheerleading, and she accepts flowers from Dylan. Then, the team's pagers ring, and they all assemble somewhere with Zoom, waiting for the spaceship they stole to pick them up.